What's up, my friends, and welcome into the PHLY Phillies Podcast. As always, we broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge here at the PHLY Studios, and we're brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And, of course, TrueMark Financial Credit Union as well. Head on over to any one of their 24 branch locations or online at TrueMark.com/PHLY to get started today. A happy Monday to you as we start another work week and another week for 1 week closer, I should say, to the beginning of the Major League Baseball spring training, and then, of course, the regular season, the World Baseball Classic involved as well. Some NFL football this weekend. I got to tell you, as a impartial observer, now that the Eagles are out, some of the worst quarterback play I've seen in a really long time in the NFL playoffs this weekend. I thought Josh Allen was terrible. I thought C.J. Stroud that may have been legitimately one of the worst postseason performances I've ever seen. But both of those guys, I think, legitimately cost their teams a chance to go play for the AFC Championship game because they were equally awful. But instead, it's going to be the Bo Nix less Denver Broncos and the New England Patriots versus to go for the Super Bowl for the AFC. And then in the NFC, the Seahawks just absolutely steamroll the 49ers 41-6. And then they will take on the Los Angeles Rams. So an NFC West team will go to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. But my goodness, some absolutely awful quarterback play this weekend and some bad football to go along with it. Now, I thought the Bears and Rams game was awesome. Caleb Williams with a just absolutely spectacular play off his back foot to tie the game late, send it to OT. Of course, the Rams win. But I thought Caleb Williams, for the most part, was excellent. And that Bears team has a really bright future. But some really great quarterback play, some really awful quarterback play, and that's the NFL content that we're going to have today. Because, of course, this is the PHLY Phillies Podcast. And today, I think we rationally have the chance to have a conversation. You saw on Friday a visceral, raw, real-time reaction from both Jamie and I that, by the way, apparently has gone semi-viral with the New York Post. So a lot of Mets fans reveling in our sorrow and laughing at us. But you saw a very real and visceral reaction to the Bo Bichette news on Friday. We've now had almost 72 hours to think about it, to be a little bit more rational, to be a bit more realistic about it. And then the question becomes, where do the Phillies go from here? That's why the headline of today's show is What Now? Because it's been a pretty long offseason in which the Phillies have not done very much, and it was kind of all leading up to a potential signing of Bo Bichette. So now that they don't have Bo Bichette, what now? What's the turning point? We'll talk about that. Here's what's coming up on the PHLY Phillies Podcast. It's the Bo Bichette fallout that we'll discuss. Money problems is the question, and what I mean by that is, what is the right way for baseball to proceed? Is it the fact that the Los Angeles Dodgers are outspending 11 teams just in their tax payments alone? Are the Dodgers-type teams the problems, or are the bottom feeder teams the problem in terms of spending their money? And then, of course, we'll wrap up today's show with our Monday edition of our blind rankings that Ethan has produced. I don't know the category or the topics, but we'll do that at the end of the show. Hello to everybody. Welcome into the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zulli, Ethan Hartley's back from his vacation. He's pushing the buttons, producing the show. And, of course, you'll hear from him in just a little bit. And then you guys hanging out in the chat. I really appreciate you all as well. So as we know, Bo Bichette, 3 years, $126 million. And now, again, as I said, now that we've had time to rationally settle down a little bit, I have to be honest with you. This makes perfect sense that Bichette took this deal and not the Phillies deal. Does it suck that the Phillies apparently had a deal on the table and the Mets swooped in at the last minute and were able to offer more AAV than the Phillies were able to do? Of course it does. But rationally speaking, this makes a lot of sense for Bo Bichette's camp to sign this high AAV short-term deal. He gets $126 million guaranteed. It's $42 million on an annual average salary. It makes a ton of sense from both Bichette's camp and the Mets camp. Now, the Phillies' offer was a competitive one. Don't get me wrong. It was a solid offer for a stability of years and $200 million. But it came out to be $28.5 million per season, which would have netted Bo Bichette as the 23rd highest paid player on AAV and the 27th highest paid player in terms of total money. Not a bad contract by any means. It was a relatively competitive offer for the Phillies doing exactly what the Phillies do, offering high years and lower AAV, but a higher guaranteed amount of money. But now per AAV, Bo Bichette becomes the 5th highest paid player in baseball on an AAV terms on shorter deals. Plus, when this 3-year contract is up, he'll just be 30 years old. He's going to re-enter free agency, assuming he stays somewhat steady offensively. And he figure he's going to play a lot of third base for the Mets, would be my guess. It'll be him at third, Lindor at short. It will be Simeon at second, and then Vientos will probably play first, and then Polanco will be your DH. You might see Polanco a little bit at third and things like that, but it'll be mostly Bo Bichette playing third base. When he re-enters the free agent market at 30 years old, there's a very real chance that he could get a long-term deal, a 7-year deal perhaps that the Phillies offered, and perhaps for more money based on how salaries and AAVs progress. Now, of course, there's always the holdup of what does the 2027 CBA bring, and if there's a floor or a cap, that may hamper things a little bit. But playing under this free market press that we have right now in terms of baseball, Bo Bichette could re-enter free agency at his age 30 season and get a ridiculously long-term deal in terms of 6, 7, 8 years at 30 as opposed to 28, and still get a big-time monetary investment. Now, the other thing is, too, Bo Bichette could theoretically re-enter free agency next year. He could re-enter free agency after 2027. He has opt-outs after every year of this contract. He could theoretically say, yeah, I played really well. I'm going to go get another long-term deal. Or I'm going to go get another short-term deal that's worth $50 million a season. The possibilities for Bo Bichette are endless. This is a really good deal for him if we're speaking objectively. Then you put the Mets into it. It's also a pretty good deal for the New York Mets as well, because knowing what they know about the Phillies, the Mets use the tool in their arsenal to jump the Phillies. The Phillies are a team that steadfastly likes to give out more years and lower AAV with more guaranteed money. The Mets said, we know your play, we know your game plan, we know your strategy. We're going to beat you at your own game, and instead we're going to do the one thing that you're not willing to do, which is give more years or give more money on fewer years. Raise the AAV and say, forget the amount of guaranteed money. Come get a ridiculous 3-year deal right now, including opt-outs after years 1 and 2. And they went and did the one thing that the Phillies were not willing to do. So from the Mets' perspective, it's a pretty shrewd move to know that that's exactly what their biggest competition is not willing to do and going out and doing it. So from an objective lens cap, from a strip your fandom away, strip the raw, visceral feel away from Friday's show, I don't blame Bo Bichette for taking this deal, and I don't blame the Mets for offering it. Now, I do think it might be strange that the Mets were willing to give opt-outs after years 1 and 2, but in total, I think that this is a really good deal for both parties. And it makes sense as to why the Phillies are left standing out in the cold with not that player to rely upon, because of the fact that they weren't willing to sacrifice the years for the higher AAV. And the Mets swooped in. So, now that we have that context in play, now to the Phillies side of things. I think this obviously is a major blow to the team for a handful of reasons. First and foremost, you miss out on a player that you were rumored and connected to for several weeks now. And in the previous week or 10 days, you were considered, quote, the odds-on favorite, the heavy betting favorite to land Bo Bichette. So you miss out on a player that you were pretty much tied in lockstep to for the last couple of weeks. The second thing is you miss out on a bat that would have balanced and stretched your lineup. Just to provide Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber protection within the top 4 would have been enough. But it also would have allowed you to slide Alec Bohm, Adolis Garcia, Brandon Marsh, inevitably JT Realmuto, whether he would have been here or not, your catcher position, down one spot in the order to what feels like a more natural spot to all of those guys. Bohm could have hit 5th. Garcia could have hit 6th. Marsh could have hit 7th. You could have been able to naturally stretch your lineup by adding a Bo Bichette to the top 4. And the third part is your biggest rival is able to sign a player out from under you who aids the top of their lineup, especially in the wake of losing Pete Alonso. Now, obviously, Bo Bichette and Pete Alonso are not one-to-one, but having that top-of-the-order hitter in Bichette certainly does soften the blow a little bit in losing your run producer, your run driver, and your power hitter in Pete Alonso to the Baltimore Orioles. So in this sense, the Phillies end up getting a knock in three different phases, and the big one being is your rival got better, at least one-to-one, while you did not. So in terms of the Phillies, what does this do? It really hurts them in three different categories. But the biggest thing that stands out to me now is that the Phillies are very likely going to head into camp with a team that is similar to the one that it left last season with. I don't think there's any big moves coming. If there are, it may be via a trade. But I don't think there are any big-time free agents left available. Now, you could sit here and say Cody Bellinger would be an excellent addition to be your everyday center fielder. And I wouldn't disagree with you. The argument is made, how many years, how much money, and do you want to add another lefty to the fold? That third piece doesn't bother me as much as others as it does. Because I think when you add a good player to your team, you figure out the overload of lefties. Yes, your three best hitters or three of your four best hitters would all be left-handed, and that would be strange. But if you have the ability to figure out a way to get Cody Bellinger on your team, you make it work. With that being said, I don't think they're signing Cody Bellinger. I don't think they're signing any big-time bats that are available left because, quite frankly, there's not many to be had. The Phillies' final chance at acquiring a big-time hitter was Bo Bichette. And now that they don't have Bichette on their roster, I think there is a very real chance that they're going to break camp with a very similar team to what they left the 2025 season with. You still have a platoon in left field. Now, who that right-handed platoon piece is going to be is still question mark. It could be internal in terms of Otto Kemp, Weston Wilson, one of those two types of guys. I know that doesn't instill a lot of confidence in many people, but that is probably option number one for this team. Option number two is you go ahead and bring in a right-handed bat to offset that platoon on a one-year small-time deal, talking about less than $10 million to split the time with Brandon Marsh. They still may go get a platoon right-handed left fielder. They still may add a veteran starting pitcher to bolster the back end of the bullpen. One name that we keep talking about is Zach Littell. One name that I heard Jim Salisbury talk about with Anthony today was Chris Bassett. They still may add, but I don't necessarily think that it's going to be in any kind of large capacity. So the team that you see right this moment, the team that includes a potential platoon in left, a 21-year-old rookie in center, a reclamation project in right, and the same third baseman who I think, while does get too much vitriol because he's better than people want to believe, but is not a four-hole hitter, is probably going to be your four-hole hitter. And so while that's not one-to-one Alec Boehm's fault, this team is very likely going to be the exact same team in terms of structure, not players, but structure that you've seen in years past, especially last season. We've talked about you're asking a lot from Justin Crawford to go ahead and be an everyday center fielder at 21 years old, a guy who, while I like a lot, I think can provide this team a decent amount in terms of the ability to get on base, the ability to steal a bag, the ability to play good defense. You're asking a lot from that kid who doesn't provide a lot of pop. You're asking a lot from a 21-year-old kid to go ahead and be an everyday center fielder when the guys on either side of him are somebody who's 3 years now removed from being a legitimate everyday offensive right fielder. Defense is still there, but what does the offense look like? And a platoon on the other side. And so the reality is, what's next for the Phillies? There may be a fringe move. There may be a back end of the rotation starting pitcher that they might add to try to give them some depth until Andrew Painter's available, until Zach Wheeler returns, to see what you might have from Aaron Nola, to limit the amount of starts that Taijuan Walker has to make. But it feels like the starting lineup of Realmuto, Harper, Stott, Turner, Bohm, Marsh, Crawford, Garcia, and Schwarber at the DH is the team that's going to not only break camp, but is going to be the starting lineup on opening day when this team hits the field Thursday, March 26th against the Texas Rangers. Brandon Marsh is going to get the start in left field, barring anything unforeseen, because the Rangers are either going to start Jacob deGrom or Nathan Eovaldi, and either one of those guys are both right-handed. Brandon Marsh is going to be your left fielder. So this team is very likely going to be that 9 plus Christopher Sanchez. And while I trust Christopher Sanchez inherently, I love Jesus Luzardo. Knowing that you're going to get Zach Wheeler back at some point bolsters this starting rotation. While that core, that 3, that starting rotation, still provides you a lot of talent, and this team still very likely is going to be in that 90-win threshold, and I think they are going to be a playoff team, this is a good team. The unfortunate part is good is not good enough in the National League anymore. You see what the Dodgers have done over the last few years. They're back-to-back champs, and now they've gone out and acquired Kyle Tucker. The Mets pulled a guy out from underneath you that's going to make them better. The Braves should bounce back after an injury-hampered season. The Milwaukee Brewers continue to defy what we all believe to be a good team and play like a great team. The Cubs have added Alex Bregman. They should be right there in the mix. And then the other teams, the Padres, still should be good. I think the Diamondbacks bounce back. There's a lot of good teams in the National League. You're amongst them, but are you in the great tier at this current moment? No, because there's only one team in that spot. The problem is getting to that point at this point is almost an impossibility. The Phillies are going to be a good team. There's no doubt in my mind that they are going to be a good team. But good in the regular season and good in the postseason are two very different things. And now I think that there is a very real chance that the team the Phillies put out there on March 26th is pretty much the same construction of a lineup that you saw in October of 2025. So what does it mean for the Phillies? What's next? What now? Probably not much. Probably this is it. They've re-signed JT Realmuto to a 3-year, $45 million deal. And my expectation is that they may bring another starter. They may bring a platoon right-handed bat in. But the team that you know right now is pretty much the team that you're going to see. And with that, let's welcome our second member of today's program into the show, our producer, our co-host, Ethan Hartley, to the show. Ethan, I thought, I'm going to say this to you, and I mean this with the, not to say that everything you've done to this point is less than. I mean this with the most sincerity and complimentary way that I possibly can. I thought your hit on Friday was the best work you've done here at PHLY. Really? I thought you were succinct. I thought you laid out points extremely well. And that I hope that you don't take that as like everything else was less, because you've done excellent work. I thought when you joined in on Friday's show, I thought that was the best work you've done here in your time at PHLY. Well, so I want to compliment you on that first.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think one thing in this industry is always staying as like Swiss Army knife as possible.
Sure.
Just being as well versed in as many tools as you can, and talking sports has always been a thing that I have enjoyed. But I understand you can't get somewhere just by learning how to talk sports. You got to learn the other skills, and that's where I found this, and anything else was just supplementary to that. So I thought, coming
first
on Friday,
of all,
being fired up.
You owed us nothing on Friday. You were off, and you provided way more than that. So kudos to you for that. But I think just the segment that you were on, I thought, and somebody commented on our YouTube channel, like Ethan said it succinctly the best, and I agree with them. I thought the 10 minutes that you were on with us was some of the best work that you have done in your time here. So first of all, I want to say thank you for all the work you've done. But I just wanted to let you know, not just in behind the scenes, but on the air too, I thought was some of your best work in your time here at PHLY.
I appreciate that a lot.
So let's get to this day's conversation. I don't have a whole lot more to add from what I just laid out. I think when we strip away the realness, the visceral, the raw feel of Friday's show and get to the objectivity of it, my sense is that they're probably not doing much more. Do you have that same sentiment, or do you think there is something left up Dombrowski's sleeve?
I would like to think that, just having a player poached in sense that there were meetings, there were serious contract negotiations. Bob Nightingale even wrote it as they agreed upon something. I don't know what that necessarily means. When Jim Salisbury was on Anthony's show this morning, he said he didn't hear anything about like an actual agreement.
Sure.
But to some extent, the two parties were very much on the same page. And as one of the commenters, I think Joe Tiz, put the Art of War quote that was really cool. It's Steve Cohen just came right in the back door, after he lost out on Tucker and said, no, like I'm going to do what it takes. And to me, if I'm Dombrowski and I'm Middleton, I'd be really pissed off that my rival team that, I've had a long tenured history with just came in and poached a player that was almost in my lap. And I mean, we might not know the details of what that exactly looks like, but close enough. I mean, like they've invested time. I think that's the bottom line. When you invest time looking into someone to bring them in your team and someone else swoops in, I mean, I don't care what the degree is. I'd be upset about it. I even feel upset about it as you and I talk about it, right? Like, we talk about endless amount of opportunities of players to sign and how things might be rearranged. And so when they get plucked, like even Carantini getting signed like after the JT deal, I thought,
I thought the Carantini thing was interesting too, because Jeffers' name has been floated on the trade block for a couple months now.
Yeah, like he might not get moved, and and then
do you go with both?
And what, a 50-50 split, or Carantini could play
do a little
first,
DH, play
maybe,
a little first,
DH?
maybe.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I would like to think that Middleton and Dombrowski are really upset that this happened, and I don't know what that means for like the finances in his pockets. If he thinks whatever, I don't care, just do what it takes. And I don't know, maybe it's Framber who I wouldn't even hate. I don't even care if it's like an overload in the amount of starting pitching that they have. I don't think you can really have enough of it. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's Bellinger. I wouldn't be opposed to that either. I don't even think it would come across as desperate at that point. Like, I think you're
still making your roster better.
Yeah. Like
desperate was signing JT an hour after this news
100%, right? We talked about that. Like there wasn't even really like a sense of change or like change of direction. Like they almost knew it's like, oh, we lost Bichette. We're going right back to the guy that we had put onto the side.
And the thing with JT too is like, we talked about this on Friday. If he'd have signed, I don't know about that exact deal, but we kind of threw out 3 years, $13, $14, $15 million. That was kind of the range that you and I were sitting in for most of the offseason. If he'd have signed that deal on like December 12th, I don't think any of us would have been up in arms. You go, 3 years, that's a lot for a 35-year-old catcher. I think a lot of people would have preferred 2, but you're never getting the deal done with 2. If you would have signed that deal a month ago, I think people would have said, yeah, okay, catching market's kind of bleak. You don't want to trade any assets. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like it's the greatest move in the world, especially he's going to be 38, but you know what he does with the staff. You know the pop time's still there. Minimized offense can still be solid enough. It happens on the heels of the Bo Bichette signing, and you go, you got to be bleeping kidding me.
Yeah,
that's where I think a lot of fans got really frustrated.
Yeah, you didn't hide your feelings one bit about it. Like you made it really easy to kind of understand. Okay, this was your process. You put JT on the back burner. You put everything in for Bo, and you almost waved the white flag as soon as it happened. I put it as I think this team's negotiating tactics are outdated in terms of the number of years, and that follows up on the conversation from Anthony's show this morning with Salisbury as well. That just players don't care about this anymore, and whether that's the MLB as a whole in the direction that it's going, or if the lockout is a serious big deal that is now impacting how players view this. It's a changed game, and these really long contracts don't matter to players anymore at this current point in time. So like even as we throw out numbers like 6-7 years for Bellinger,
right?
Maybe that doesn't even matter to him as he looks around and sees that, oh, this is the way teams are going. I want something shorter. I want an opt out every year. Yeah. I want 2-3 years just to re-enter the market. And we've seen the Phillies not budge with any of that stuff, and you're going to be the one left behind. It's certainly betting on yourself as a player to say, hey, listen, that type of money is life-changing money, no matter how you slice it. Even if you never worked another day in the league, that's life-changing money. But I think a lot of these players are kind of betting on themselves a little bit, especially the guys in their mid to late 20s, saying, hey, I'll take the 3-year deal.
for the $42 million a season, and then I'll re-enter the free agent pool. And even if I take another 3-year deal, which probably would, I think then maybe you start to get into the longer term deals. But even if you don't, I'll take another 3-year deal. I made $42 a year last time. Contracts have gone, 12% or whatever they've gone up since I signed. Now I'm going to get $47 a season, and I can reevaluate at $34. And I might get another 3-year deal. You might start seeing guys piece these things together and have 3-3-year deals with 3 different teams. And Bichette might sign 3 for $126 with the Mets, and then in 2029 go and sign 3 years, $150 with, the Yankees, right? And then do something else in 2032 for 3 years and $150 again. Yeah, I don't see what's unless it is written into the CBA, I don't see what's stopping players from taking these short-term deals more frequently.
Yeah, I would wonder a legitimate breakdown in this and looking past time, but in the windows that teams are winning at or peaking and creating their championship windows at, what is the evaluation that players have in that signing a 13-year deal historically has not given me the best opportunity to win or be in a better situation to then reevaluate my options, right? Like sure. Bryce Harper signing a 13-year deal, being with the Phillies for the rest of his career, essentially saying,
yeah, I want to finish my career here, basically.
What does that look like from other players looking at his situation, seeing that, well, he's only been to the World Series once. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of plateauing. I mean, same with the Padres with Manny signing a humongous long deal. Fernando also signing a big long deal. That's his first deal, so that's a little bit different. But like stuff like that, I just wonder if teams are recognizing or hearing that these long-term contracts don't work, like the consistency of or chemistry of being there for so long doesn't work for them anymore, and now that's not as valued, and they just will say, oh, I'll hop to this window instead. I mean, well, look at Tucker with now signing with the Dodgers in terms of the end of Houston's tenure. I mean, they won the World Series in 23, but kind of showing that a little smaller market. Now they're almost like cutting corners in how they
weird to think of the Astros as like a mid-tier spending
exactly
team.
And maybe seeing that, well, in his contract negotiations, I'm sure he never got the type of money that he believed he deserved. Then goes to Chicago, which again is notoriously kind of cut corners with their money and staying under luxury tax. And now looking at it from a winning perspective and saying, well, here's LA investing everything into winning and just saying, I'd rather play there, and I get the best of both worlds.
So last thing on this one, and then we have to hit a break. When I see all these like short-term deals with high AAVs, do you know the first player I think about? Ronald Acuna Jr.
Oh.
If he could go back and do his contract again.
Right. Yeah.
You would have to think he would go back and take one of these types of deals.
Yeah, like even players. I mean, I guess it's your first.
Now, I get it. It's different. They blew out arbitration years to get to the free agency, which is totally different than signing a unrestricted free agent. But I think about a guy coming off an MVP season. If he could do it again, you almost think he would, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, like just the Roman Anthony kind of deals.
Sure.
Those like hardly played, but so much potential. Getting it done like out of the way super quickly. What does that look like now going forward? Are players gonna bank more on that? I don't know, actually. That I could see going either way, just because that's life-changing money, and you spent a lot of time in the minors on smaller kind of deals. But
all right, so let's take a break. On the other side, I have 3 mystery players. By the way, happy birthday, Ray Schumacher. Hope you have a good one. We'll talk to you on Wednesday. Enjoy the time with your family. On the other side, I have 3 players. These are not Bo Bichette replacements, because nobody left as a Bo Bichette replacement. These are players that I think the Phillies could conceivably think about in order to round out the fringes of their roster. Those guys, the platoon, the bench piece, the starter, whatever it might be. 3 position players that I think the Phillies could target, and I want to know your thoughts of these players versus the guys that are currently on the roster. We'll talk more about it on the other side. We'll get to our blind rankings at the end of the show. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we'll be right back after this. New year, new you, right? That's what they always say. And if you're thinking about that with your finances and you've been waiting to take an advantage of a great offer to boost your savings, That's where our friends at TrueMark Financial come into play. They are offering a limited 5-month certificate at 4.25% APY. And with a minimum deposit of just $500, it's super easy to get started. So whether you're thinking about a special goal, whether that's a vacation, or, maybe popping that question to a special somebody, or you're just thinking about your emergency fund or want smart ways to make sure that your money works just a little bit harder, this certificate is a great option. You can open your certificate today at TrueMark.com or by visiting any one of their 24 branch locations. Annual percentage yield is accurate as of 12/15/25 and is subject to change. Certificate requires a minimum deposit of $500. Federally insured by the NCUA. Visit TrueMark.com for full details. Again, visit TrueMark.com for full details today. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with our friends over at Bet365. You find out why 90 million users worldwide have teamed up with Bet365 because they are the live in-game betting pioneers. You can get in on constantly changing lines, and you can live stream 780,000 different events each and every year across 78 different sporting platforms. They offer awesome early payout across the NHL. If your team goes up by 3 goals at any point, your bet is going to be marked as a winner. And how about this? Right now, new users who sign up with Bet365, use that promo code on the bottom of the screen there, PHLY365, deposit $10, place a bet for just $5, and you'll get $200 back in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. You can use that bonus bet money on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and a heck of a lot more. You find out why it's never ordinary with our friends over at Bet365. You must be 21 and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. To the PHLY Phillies Podcast, a happy Monday to each and every one of you. Tyler Zulli, Ethan Hartley, you guys all hanging out in the chat. It's time to get to, we love to do our mystery player segments here. So let's get into 3 players that are still available at varying different AAVs, what I think their years may be. Some are going to be guys that get 1-year deals, prove-it type of deals. Some are guys that probably still will get multi-year deals, and I wonder if that changes the outlook on how the Phillies perceive them. But let's get to 3 players that I've kind of looked at different ranges and things like that. Starting with this first player, split time between 2 different teams last year. Ended up playing 94 games and a little over 300 at-bats. Did hit .318 with a .352 on base, a .470 slug, and an .822 OPS. In those 94 games, 10 home runs, 44 RBI, 28 extra base hits, and his 125 OPS plus was the second best of his major league career. Now, the thing that stands out to you is on his Baseball Savant page, there's a lot of blue and then 2 really high reds. So what does this guy do well? Well, he doesn't swing and miss a lot, and he doesn't strike out a lot. What does he not do so well, or what did he not do so well last year? Well, there was not a lot of hard hit contact. The barrel rates were down. The hard hit percentages were down. Now, this is a guy who has an absolute cannon for an arm, but I think at this point defensively is probably a subpar defender. Now, can play some left, can play some third, spent a lot of time in his second stop this past year as a DH. But the good was career highs in both average and on-base percentage, and he had second best in his career in terms of slug. Only 2023 was better, and OPS only 2019 was better. As I said, he doesn't strike out a lot, he doesn't swing and miss, but the other limited metrics are really what kind of worries me. So this is a guy who feels like, based on his first pitch selectivity, would be very patient at the plate. He only swings at 38% of the first pitches that he sees, but he only sees 3.56% or 3.56 pitches per plate appearances, aka he never walks. Of all the hitters last year, that 3.56 ranked 582nd. Now, that also includes guys who, had 10 at-bats or less, right? But amongst qualified hitters, now he himself was not a qualified hitter, but if he would have been tied with Pete Crow Armstrong for seeing the 135th most pitches in a plate appearance, per plate appearance this season. There were 147 qualified hitters, which would have tied him for the 13th fewest pitches per plate appearance this season. So even though he has plate appearances where he's not offering at the first pitch, he's only averaging about another 2.5 pitches per plate appearance. The other thing is he had a 348 BABIP last year, and with the second team, the team that traded for him, he had a 413 BABIP, which means there was a pretty sizable amount of luck in this guy's offensive productivity. If you look at the expected numbers, the expected batting average and the expected slug, they're both down from a season or from the numbers that he posted in terms of his actual batting average and his actual slug. Now, there is merit to say the back of the baseball card means something. A 318 batting average is not a fluke all the way through. This slug that he had was not a fluke all the way through. But I do think that there is potential for a regressive season after the season that he posted last year. Now, this guy's market value projected on an annual average salary is about $6.1 million per season. For $6 million, I certainly would take a chance on a guy like this who posted a year that he did offensively. The defense is subpar. The arm is legitimate. I would imagine he would probably be a platoon piece in left, play a little bit of third, but not a ton. Could DH if you wanted to get Schwarber in left field. Provide you a little bit of positional flexibility, but the defense is not all that strong. So you're really hoping on another season of high batting average, high on base, solid slug, because he's not going to hit a ton of home runs, just 10 home runs last season for this player. So before we get to player number 2 and 3, and Ethan, we'll reveal all 3 at the end. What's your interest level on this player number 1?
I know the player, and I'll tell you, this is a name that just like really, really low. Obviously the idea of a mystery player is to take the name out of it.
Sure.
This is a name where I saw it and I'm like, oh God, like the exact example of why we do mystery players. And the numbers do show better than I think that the player has been at himself. As I read Futz's comment, you had me at platoon, I'm in.
So I think the Phillies ask would be different than, like, I still think this guy has a chance to get a starting job somewhere.
Yeah.
And that would be the deterrent for him signing here.
Yes. I definitely see that, where he had a much better year last year than years prior have flourished for him to be. So I definitely see that this is like a realistic hope, but again, there is still opportunity out there for him to have a starting job. So I'd be interested, but again, like I don't think this moves the needle.
At $6 million versus pre-arbitration, would you take this player or Otto Kemp?
I might take Otto Kemp.
I think
knowing who it is,
you might have some. You might have some support on that one. Maybe not from me personally, but I think looking at money and things like that, you put it all into perspective. Elephant in the room says would prefer to stick with Kemp over this player.
Yeah. I think just thinking where the floor has been for him, and knowing at a point in his career that he's coming, like almost Harrison Bader-esque, where you see the long-term numbers versus what he just did most recently. And I even feel less about him than I do about Bader. So I definitely would feel much better with Kemp, and just the fact that you're throwing a dart at the wall and you never know.
So player number 1, career year regression possibility. Player number 2, second verse, same as the first. Career year regression possibility, part number 2. By the way, that first player, 31 years old. Player number 2, 31. Projected market value is just over $10 million per season. This player had career highs in average, on base, and OPS this past season, and his 2025 slug was only beaten by his 2021 slug. You see 17 home runs, 54 RBI, 42 extra base hits, and the 117 OPS plus he posted this year is a career high. Now, what does this player do well? Defense is definitely a strong suit there. You see 92nd percentile of defensive plays made in terms of outs above average. The arm strength is also there. You also still see, much like in the first player, a lot of blue in terms of expected value versus actual value. Hard hit percentages, average exit velocity, chase rates are bad, squared up percentages are not particularly good. Strikeout rates were high, but what this player did do well was everything elevated last season compared to what you saw in over his career. As I said, average OBP, OPS, you also get career highs in hits, doubles, home runs, RBI, barrel rates went through the roof. His hard hit percentage, which was still low, by the way, at 40.3%, was a career high. His average exit velocity was tied for a career best. And with all of this, all of those career best in play, His expected batting average was 57 points below his actual average, and his expected slug was 75% or 75 points lower than his actual slug. As we said, the things that he does well are undeniable. He's a great defender. He's a great base runner. He himself had a career year heading into free agency. And much like with player number 1, I fear that there is an offensive regression coming. And this is a player, unlike player 1, who I think signs to a 1-year deal, I think player 2 still is looking for a multi-year investment. Now, I don't love the stat WAR. It's not all-encompassing stat. I think sometimes these types of players or that stat can be misguiding, because Ryan Howard is the prime example of a player with a bad WAR who is not a bad player. But this is a player who had an 8 career WAR over his first 8 seasons, averaging 1 WAR per season. He posted a 2.6 last year alone. I don't know of a player that could sustainably, over a 2 or 3 year stretch that I think this player is going to achieve, have a 260% increase in WAR year over year for 3 straight years. I think this player is also a candidate for regression, and I wonder if that's a stopping point for the Phillies as well.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar boat. I think when you consider the years and what this player have, I even feel less about, I don't know, because I was also going to touch on defensively. I think he brings a lot more value than what mystery player number 1 brings.
This player is tenfold the better defender than player 1.
And I have to consider that versus the number of years.
And a better base runner too.
Yeah, and I have to consider that versus the number of years, and I'm still undecided on that.
That's the thing. Like player 1, even though I think he can get a starting job, I do think signs a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Player 2 definitely should get a starting job and will very likely get a 2 or 3 year deal.
Yeah. So a lot of factors to consider. I don't know how I would rank that, because pending lockout, pending how being that this player had kind of a small window of positive production to almost open this multi-year window up for him. I don't know. That is really hard how I would rank them.
Let's get to player number 3, and then we can decide fully. Player number 3 is the official definition of thrift store shopping. Ethan, I got this shirt that I'm currently wearing this weekend at a thrift store for $5.99.
Well done.
This is the player that you spend $5.99 on. Played 65 games last year and had less than 150 at-bats. A 216 average. OBP was not strong. Slug solid enough for a guy who hit 216, but the extra base hit numbers clearly aren't there. He's played for 5 teams in the last 2 seasons. Now, what this guy does that the opposite 2 players don't do is that he does hit the ball hard when he makes contact. Now, this guy strikes out at a high clip and whiffs and chases at a high clip, but his hard hit rates are really high for a guy who probably is not that good of a hitter. His average exit velocity, strong. His expected slug is significantly better than the slugging that he posted. This is the type of player that you go get at the thrift store. But it's also potentially the type of player that the Phillies would consider on a minor league deal with an invite to camp with an opportunity to compete for that right-handed platoon piece in left field.
I'm for that, especially at the cost at this day and age. I don't know. I think maybe I also have some.
No, it's not Whit Merrifield.
I think I have some hesitation just when it comes to what's left out there at this point in time for them to sign. I mean, I know it's not going to happen. I know they're going to consider all of the biggest possibilities that they can, missing out on Bo. But I think at this point in time, how I view these players in the fact that there is a lot less to offer and eating up money at the same time, which we know has continued to be a problem for Middleton and Dombrowski to maneuver with, that I almost want to say I feel best about this player just because of how little he costs just outright versus the other 2 players that I still hesitate just monetarily.
Because this very much feels like minor league deal, invite to camp.
And why not? And you can still get a Bellinger, you can still get a Framber, you could still splash super hard and still maybe even bank on this guy, whatever you might.
So you think that this type of player almost is in like a different bucket than everybody else?
Yeah, like I almost.
So maybe there's almost value in trying it just to
exactly. Like I realistically think you can have two of you can still have player 1 and 2
Sure.
and player 1 or player 2 and this player, and still might get some pretty decent value out of it.
I think this is a ultra low risk with medium reward.
Yeah, I think there's stuff to be encouraged by this.
So
by all means,
we have those 3 players, and on the other side, we'll reveal who those 3 players are, including one of the players that Jon Heyman just tweeted about, and I think might kill the dream of this segment. But we'll talk more about it on the other side. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge. We'll be right back after this. All right, so you found your special someone, that person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. Now you know what the next question is. Well, before you even pop that question, you're going to have a million different questions about the perfect ring for your partner. That's where our friends at Bucci Jewelry and Design come into play, because you don't know, or maybe you don't know what the 5 C's are, how much money you're able to spend, what your budget is going to get you. It is a stressful experience. I've been there. That's why working with our friends Joe and Michelle at Bucci Jewelry and Design has been a game changer. They make the process seamless. They make you feel like family. You're not just a customer to them. You are one of one. They actually listen to you. They help you figure out what your partner is going to love, and then their team designs something completely custom right there in-house. There's no pressure. There's no pushy sales vibes. It's just good people who love what they do and do what they love. So next time you need that perfect piece, go see Joe and Michelle at Bucci's Jewelry and Design. 30 plus years in the game, voted Philly's #1 jeweler year after year. Over 1,000 5-star reviews. You can check them out at BucciJewelers.com and tell them that we here at PHLY sent you. All right, with the winter months in full swing, you know that means we have an incredible slate of sports across a bunch of different platforms, whether it be pro football playoffs about to start, college football playoff in full swing, and how about this, pro hockey, pro hoops, and college hoops, all right there for your watching enjoyment. And if you call yourself a sports fan, you have to get Xfinity. There's no lagging, no buffering, no switching between apps. It's just the best sporting destination where you can find all of the best games and your favorite teams all in one place. It's the perfect fan flex where you get all of that action right there in your living room. And with crystal clear optics, enhanced sound with 4K, it's going to feel like you're at the arena or at the stadium anyway, and you don't have to worry about battling traffic and paying for tickets. And sometimes you can have up to 4 games going at once with the quad box, because why not? You can. And on top of that, you get real-time notifications and live stats right there on your TV. So next game day, make sure that big fan in your life isn't a big fail. Tell them to learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zulli, Ethan Hartley here. Welcome back to the show. Now, before we tell you who those 3 players are that we just talked about, if you're just joining us, we just gave you 3 mystery players who potentially could be, fringe type of players, plug and place around the edges. But I will say this. Now, the first player that we just mentioned, we will get to in just a little bit. But Jon Heyman tweets out literally 3 minutes ago that player is drawing significant interest from the Rangers, Padres, Cardinals, Reds, Cubs, and A's, all in play. That player's getting a starting job, Ethan. I think at this point, that many teams, that's a starter for that many teams.
100%.
But as we laid out, here are the 3 players. Player number 1 with a career year offensively. Could there be a regression in place? Player number 2, same thing. Career year. Could there be a regression in place? Player number 3, now we're bargain shopping. We're figuring out guys that maybe could be, minor league offers with an invite to camp type of players. Now, player number 1 is Miguel Andujar. Now, Miguel Andujar is a guy that I think many teams covet because of what we talked about with the low strikeout rate, low whiff rate type of stuff, the bat-to-ball skills. Even if he's not necessarily hitting the ball particularly hard all the time, there is a lot to like in terms of this guy doesn't strike out, this guy doesn't whiff. And the fact that he can play a handful of different positions, I think that adds to it. I think Andujar is going to be a starter for one of those teams made mention. 2 of them, by the way, he played for last year, the Cincinnati Reds and the Athletics. And then you also look at teams like the Rangers, the Cardinals. Now, I think the Padres and the Cubs probably would settle in some kind of platoon role of some kind. But some of those other teams, he's going to get a starting look. And while I think that it would be a great addition for the Phillies to add that type of bat to the lineup, I do still think that there is a regression chance coming. And I think he also is going to make more money on a 1-year deal than that $6 million market value. So I think that while I would be interested for sure, I do still think this guy has a chance to be a starter. Player number 2, no surprise, yes, John Peace, it is Harrison Bader. And I know that a lot of people talk about bringing Harrison Bader back, and is it running it back? Is it not? Now, you know the good and you know the bad with Bader. You know he can play excellent defense. You know he's an awesome base runner. You know last year he was a spark plug type of player for this team when they acquired him at the trade deadline. And I also know that everything he did last year was well above his career average. It was, as we said, a 2.6 WAR season compared to being a 8 WAR player over 8 seasons. That's 1 WAR per season on the dot. He was a 2.6 WAR player last year. I think this guy still gets a multi-year deal. I don't know if it's here or elsewhere. I would have to think that once Bellinger signs, the market for Bader probably takes shape a little bit more. But I do still think he gets a multi-year deal. And I think that is going to dissuade the Phillies from bringing him in as that type of player. While I do believe he still could be helpful for the Phillies, even in an offensive regression season, I think that he is going to command more years than the Phillies are willing to offer. Player number 3 is a guy that we were taking a stab on and hoping maybe you get a little bit of a return on. It's Austin Slater, who really has been a career journeyman most of his career. As we said, 5 teams over the last 2 seasons. Really has not been the guy. Has not been a starter for a majority of his career. Bounced around between, he was a little bit with the Giants in 2021 and 2022, but has bounced around between the Giants and the Reds and the Orioles and the White Sox and the Yankees over the last couple of seasons. That's the type of guy you take a very low-risk flyer on and see if he can provide you anything. It's kind of like, Ethan, last offseason we talked about, well, you and I didn't, but on the show we talked about Mike Tauchman, who ended up having himself a pretty good year with the White Sox, and I think could land himself maybe a multi-year deal with a better team this offseason. I think Tauchman's better than Slater and was better than Slater last year, but that type of signing where you just kind of taking a chance on a guy.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the beauty of baseball in its format where, stuff like that is a little more, not allowed, but like more flourishment where something like that can happen. And they even I don't think they traded him. I think they kept him for the full year. So I don't know.
Tauchman?
I think so.
Yeah, because I think he was one of the guys that a lot of people were like, well, the White Sox stink.
Yeah.
Maybe they can get, especially on a 1-year deal. It's like, yeah, sure, you flip a player, right? He ended up playing for the White Sox for the full season. Now, his first half was better than his second half. He ended up hitting 263 over about 350 at-bats. But drove in 40, slugged 400, had a 112 OPS plus. Like, as a part-time type of player, that's the kind of guy that you would be interested in. The issue for Tauchman last year, much like this year, is that he's left-handed. And much like a lot of the guys that we've talked about, left-handed platoon piece is not something the Phillies are looking for. That's why I think in this whole grand scheme of things, I think it is going to end up being Otto Kemp as the right-handed piece in left field. Now that they've missed out on Refsnyder specifically, I think it's probably going to be Otto Kemp.
Yeah, I mean, and I do thinking about it a little more. I mean, Bader, it depends. I think there's a spot for him, and he brings so much more defensively that, I can even see it far past the numbers that he produces offensively. Yeah, I think I would almost feel better just taking the swing with Kemp, who we already have, whereas, you're giving money and reacclimating a player into a new system and all that stuff. So
we basically just spent 52 minutes getting you to the point that they're saying this team's pretty much set.
Yeah. Or Slater, which
people
again,
aren't going to like you, Ethan.
Which I would not mind one bit, but again, that's a throwing a dart at the target type of deal where it's like, what do I have to lose?
Sure.
You don't even lose really anything financially. Like
how you're talking minor league split, league minimum type of signing.
Yeah, like you're talking
if he makes the team.
You're talking single digit percentages of the kind of
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It's like why not, really?
All right, let's pause. On the other side, we'll get to our blind ranking segment of the day. Ethan's come up with another top 10 list. I don't know the category or the entrance, and we'll go through it. I thought ranking 2 went a whole heck of a lot better than ranking 1. Let's see what the third week provides us. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge. We'll be right back after this. Guys, let's be honest for a second. You get into your 30s, things start to get a little bit more difficult. Your workouts become harder. Your recovery time seems to take more time. So you start to do Google searches and figure out what's going on. Is it just because I'm getting older? And what keeps coming up? well, potentially low T. And doctors, they act like TRT. It's no big deal. Just $3,000 for the rest of your life to shut down your natural production of testosterone forever. So if you want to head into the new year, turn back the clocks and make things easier for your body the natural way, that's where our friends at Mars Men come into play. They give you the same benefits of optimized testosterone, the energy, the strength, the focus, without shutting your body down. It's real natural ingredients, and it's like hitting the reset button on your body and your hormone factory instead of shutting it down entirely. So for a limited time, if you're interested, our listeners right now get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. It's a perfect way to kick off the new year strong. Again, mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. Want one of your starting pitchers pinch hitting in a big spot? Of course you don't. It's not worth the risk, the time, or the money. You want to keep your stars focused on what they do best. And the same can be said for your business. You don't want your top people buried in operations, the tedious, time-consuming, redundant activities that not only take their time away, but also wear them down. You want to make sure your impact players stay fresh and focused on what they do best. That's where our friends at Togo come in. They're an integrated part of your team that take the work off your starter's plate so they can focus on making your company and your business move forward. Every engagement starts with free process mapping and engineering, and there is not a dime billed to you until the real work begins. And with each Togo program, they include a dedicated staff, custom automation, and a US-based process engineer team who act as your quarterback while you stay in control. At Togo, they turn your playbook into performance. You call the shots, they execute your way, and they advise along the journey. Visit harnesstogo.com to scale smarter, work faster, and stay focused on winning. One final segment here on the PHLY Phillies Podcast as we broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge. It is time to get to our blind ranking segment of the episode. Now, last week was blind ranking the top 10 minor league baseball team names that Ethan came up with. I'm intrigued to see what this week's is. So, Ethan, I'll turn it over to you. What is our top 10 list this week?
So this one I felt a little more experimental with.
Interesting.
There's a lot of open to interpretation. I think with the topic, not really. Once I start naming out the choices, I think it'll kind of make a little more sense. But this one is Phillies just lost out on Bo Bichette. I wanted to do Phillies that never were.
Okay.
I mean, they never were Phillies, but players that have been linked to, or I even went on like some Reddit posts where it's like, who did you wish the Phillies really signed? Sure. Like kind of stuff like that.
So kind of like the what if shows that we did back this summer.
Yeah, or like I mean, again, Bo, it seemed like it was so much closer. You'll kind of get the range. Some still might be a player that can sign. Some there's kind of a lot of open interpretation to how you choose to go about this, but it's players that I think could have ultimately ended up on had a fair opportunity to end up on the Phillies and didn't, whether it might be. So,
all right, cool. Let's do it.
The first one, just getting it right off the bat, is Bo Bichette.
Yeah, I think that this one, in terms of how he would have fit this Phillies lineup, in terms of how close it felt like the Phillies, you brought up that Nightingale report, how close the Phillies were to acquiring Bo Bichette and what felt like they were kind of on the 1 yard line. This is probably up there. I think that this, especially with the feel of a window that is starting to close, this is probably pretty high up there. I'm going to put this one at number 3 because the way that I'm going to rank these are like how close they were, what they would have done to the team, the severity of the situation surrounding the team. I think all of these things put together, I think Bo Bichette would have been a huge boost for this Phillies team this year. I'm going to put him at number 3 on this list because I do think there are a couple of guys who, if you put them on this category, could get over Bichette, but I think he's going to be pretty high up on this list. I am going to put Bo Bichette at number 3 because I certainly think he would have helped the Phillies this year.
Yeah, I think that is kind of one of the ways to go about it in which how close was the player. I also thought of it like what kind of production, like what do they miss out on?
Sure.
Like, by not.
And it's easier to do it with players that have played other seasons.
Yes.
Because there's one guy that I think you may put on the list that had a terrible 2025. That was a trade rumor in 2024. So I'll see if you have, see if we're thinking the same way.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm going to put Bichette at number 3.
The next one, I think I know your answer is fairly obvious. Patrick Corbin.
Patrick Corbin is number 10.
Yeah.
Because Patrick Corbin would have sunk the Phillies, and especially considering what they were able to do surrounding the Patrick Corbin sweepstakes. They wined and dined Patrick Corbin and really, really wanted him, and rightfully so. Was coming off some really good years in Arizona. Signed with the Nationals, what did we say? It was $126, I think, $million it was, the contract. And in terms of return on investment, Patrick Corbin was one of the worst returns on investment in Major League Baseball over that time period. There is no question in my mind that Patrick Corbin is number 10 on this list. I think he would have been extremely detrimental to the Phillies' success.
Yeah, I thought about throwing in that one later just to throw you a total curveball.
I had a feeling he was going to be on this list.
And then getting the rotten egg, but I thought a little earlier would
But before we go on, we're going to put Corbin at 10. Before we go on, big thanks to everybody in our on our streaming services, Roku, Samsung, Xfinity. Head on over to allphly.com to watch the rest of the show. It's officially time for overtime. Yeah, Patrick Corbin, God, that would have been bad.
Yeah.
Especially considering you were able to, in that same 12-month period, end up go and get Zach Wheeler. That could have been really, really detrimental to the Phillies.
Yeah. Next one, I'm curious where you'll put this one. Garrett Crochet. I don't know how legitimate the trade rumors were, but
I mean, there was definitely talks, and you know how much I like Crochet. I think this is a balance between there's no question he would have made them better, and I don't know how close they were to actually making the trade happen. So this is going to be a balancing act, not in the sense that I think Garrett Crochet is one of the top 5 pitchers in baseball. I'm going to say that right now, and I think especially if you would have been able to lock him up to a long-term deal to go Crochet, Wheeler, Sanchez at the top of your rotation, that's dynamite. Mm-hmm. And then Ranger at the 4 last season, that's nasty. I'm going to rank this in the sense of I don't know how close they were to actually making this happen. And I'm going to put Crochet at... I'm going to put him at 5 because I think there's a balancing act between him actually being a Philly and what he would have done. What he would have done puts him in the top 2. Mm-hmm. How close I think he was to being a Philly? Probably 7 or 8. And if I put that and average it out, I'd probably say I'm going to put him at number 5. And so when people see this screenshot and go, what are you, crazy? Crochet at 5? It's not because I think he's the 5th best player. I think it's because of the likelihood of the scenario was less than Bichette and some other moves to be made.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I think at the cost at which the Red Sox in this case bought him at, and then what he kind of became, I think I could have saw that putting him much higher in terms of the player missed out on.
Oh, for sure.
Guess. Yeah. The next one, this one's pretty much an icon, J.D. Drew.
J.D. Drew's interesting because J.D. Drew on the surface was the generational pick the Phillies were hoping for. Mm-hmm. But because of the fact that Drew didn't sign, the Phillies were bad, and the way that the draft happened back in the 90s was that it wasn't the worst team got the first pick inherently. The AL and NL switched every year. So the Phillies were not the worst team following the J.D. Drew draft. But because they were the worst team in the National League the year the NL held the rights to the first pick, they ended up getting the number 1 pick that year and drafting Pat Burrell. Mm-hmm. And Pat Burrell, while not a Hall of Famer, was an everyday outfielder for this team for 10 years, basically. Basically lock for 30 home runs every year. He was going to hit 250. You knew what the deficits were. Not a good defender, not a good base runner, but run producer, home run hitter. Burrell offset the J.D. Drew stuff. So while people hate J.D. Drew in this city, Burrell softens the blow.
Yeah.
I'm going to put J.D. Drew at number 8 because I think if you don't get Burrell, you probably soften the blow a little bit. Now, I will say this. If Drew signs, you have one of 2 choices. You could either still draft Burrell and have both of them in your outfield, which would have probably been super beneficial to the team, or you could have drafted a pitcher who went number 2. You know who went number 2 that year?
I don't remember.
It was Mark Mulder. Could have ended up drafting Mark Mulder in that draft. You could have gotten a legitimate bona fide top of the rotation type of guy. I still think they draft Pat Burrell to have both of those bats because Burrell was coming off of I think he was the college baseball player of the year that year. it was a pretty much can't miss type of player.
Mm-hmm.
You probably have Burrell and JD Drew, but at least Burrell softens the blow of JD Drew a little bit.
That's fair. Yeah, I totally get that. Next one, Yamamoto.
I was full tilt for Yamamoto. I wanted Yamamoto so badly. I thought that the guy was going to be an absolute stud. He is an absolute stud. I wanted him more than Sasaki. I wanted him more than, as you know how much I've talked about Imai this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted Yamamoto more than Imai. I wanted Yamamoto more than a lot of guys. I don't know how close they were in the sense that like it seemed like he just wanted to be a Dodger, but the reports were they offered the most money.
Yeah.
I think Yamamoto goes at number... God, I wanted Yamamoto so bad. I think Yamamoto goes at number 1.
Okay.
I wanted Yamamoto so bad. Like everything you read and watched and like were able to read scouting reports on that guy was like, this dude is legit. He's the truth. And while I think Bichette helps the lineup more than Yamamoto at the time because of the starting rotation being good, God, I wanted Yamamoto on this team so bad.
Yeah. When I mean, watching the World Series, just going off a 2 days rest was just like you got to be kidding me. Like just an Iron Man that he's out there and just not like just giving up nothing. And it was just like, you have got to be kidding me. Like this guy's just,
he's nasty and he's
guy
only
out every
getting
day.
better.
Yeah. And he's not even that old. And just, it was, I think that made it hurt for me more. Because again, I don't think at the time I knew they were suitors. And I think now learning as you and I have talked that they've offered the most money. It's just like, you were right there.
Yamamoto would have been, because you would have probably not had to trade for Luzardo.
Yeah.
Or you could have and then not worried about losing Ranger as much.
Yeah.
Yamamoto's a stud, number 1.
Yeah. Next one, Nathan Eovaldi.
I think looking back on it, Eovaldi would have been much higher on the list than initially anticipated. Eovaldi has gotten better as he's gotten older.
Yeah.
His stuff is nasty. He's still throwing in the high 90s, and he's gotten healthy. And the Eovaldi you saw in Boston that year that they went to the World Series, he's basically been that guy for Texas for like 3 straight years now. His health plays a huge part. I think Eovaldi is awesome, and in hindsight, probably higher on the list. At the time, I was like, yeah, that'd be a good move. So I think I'm going to go with that basis as opposed to what he's become. I'm going to put Eovaldi at 7. But I think like if you ask me if the Phillies could get Eovaldi today, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think I'm going to put him at 7 based on like what he was at the time they could have acquired him.
That's fair. That's a fair outlook to it. Yeah, I feel like again every year as you've touched on, like he's just a guy who just still maintains his own production just despite his age, and you're not like you're waiting for him.
I mean, he and DeGrom are both in their mid-30s now, and they're like that's one of the nastier 1-2 punches in baseball.
Yeah, crazy. Next one, a guy who they could still get. Maybe they could even get today. I mean, even with how everything has transpired, Luis Robert.
2023, I'd have been over the moon. 2025, because that's how we're playing it, he's number 9 for me.
That would suck, actually. Now thinking about it, that'd be so killer. If
you're asking me, could they have done it 2 years ago? He'd probably be like 2 or 4 on this list.
Yeah.
Right this moment, because I think that's where we have to play it, because it's the most recent chance. He's going to be number 9.
And I think just for how much they've dragged it out, it's just like every year he's on the radar, and it's like, when are we going to do something? And the fact that I think it even adds more that every year they still have interest in him, and every year he just declines like in something else, and I just find that very interesting. Next one, I don't know if the Phillies are necessarily linked to this guy, but this one I saw on Reddit as a handful of comments said that they wanted this guy over Nick Castellanos, and that's Seiya Suzuki.
Yeah, I liked Suzuki's bat a lot. The defense was obviously questionable, but so was Castellanos coming in, right? Suzuki was he's a run producer and has been for the Cubs for a while now. Now, there's a very good chance he's their starting right fielder this year because they just don't have anybody else to play right field. I think in a perfect world, you want him to be a DH. But I think Suzuki might be their starting right fielder to start the year. Really, really good player. I think at the time, coming off the big year in Cincinnati, I think I would have probably preferred Castellanos. So I'm going to put Suzuki at 6. Even though I think now, looking back on it, I'd much prefer him over Castellanos.
Yeah, he's aged much better.
Yes.
I mean, even accounting for the playoff moments that Castellanos has had, like just I think at this point in time, if it was all avoidable just by signing Suzuki instead of him, I think myself.
But at the time when the Phillies announced they were
that.
signing Nick Castellanos, I was super excited.
Yeah,
because I thought he was going to hit 4th and be their right-handed, maybe not a 35 home run guy, but like 25 home runs, 95, 100 RBI, 270. I'd like slide right in behind, Harper and Schwarber, or however you're going to do it. Like Schwarber at the leadoff spot at the time. Castellanos hits 4. That was the whole point of signing Castellanos. Just didn't work. Yeah, I'll put Suzuki at 6.
Next one, linked a little bit, but a guy that people have also just talked about in that it would have made a lot of sense. Teoscar Hernandez.
Yeah, so when they had the chance to sign Teo, I was really not interested because the high strikeout rate was just going to play into a team full of high strikeout, high chase guys. I was clearly wrong, especially the first year he had in LA. He was an all-star. That paired with my interest, probably 4. I'll put him at 4, which means 2 is probably not going to be a guy who should be 2, but I'm going to put Teoscar Hernandez at number 2.
Yeah,
I was wrong on Hernandez. I thought it would be wouldn't play because of the way the roster was constructed. It was just too many chase guys, too many whiff guys, too many strikeout guys. He would have been another guy, but I was wrong, especially after that first year. I'll put Hernandez at 4.
Yeah, I think he's another guy that's just aged better with time,
Yep.
and probably going to a new team and giving himself the opportunity.
And now you think about the way that their roster is constructed, he might hit 7th on that team.
I think I saw in the projected lineup that he'll definitely hit somewhere that low. I don't think you'll like where you have to place this last guy.
I kind of figured.
Byron Buxton.
Yeah, elite athlete, elite player when he's healthy, never actually healthy.
Yep.
I would not have put him at 2. I probably would have moved Bichette up. I would have moved Crochet up. Probably would flip Crochet and Teo, but we have to put Buxton at 2. Happy with my 1. Happy with my 10. I think I'd move Bichette to 2. Crochet to 3, Hernandez to 4, probably Suzuki to 5. I think Buxton at 6 is not a bad place to be. But just the injury history, like it's the type of guy, if he could play 150 games a year, like my God, does he make your team better?
Yeah.
Power's there, elite defense, speed, base runner threat. Like he's a 5-tool player when he's healthy.
Well, and there seems to be much agreement about that as well, just in terms of just his acclamations that he earns when he's healthy. But again, it's every year almost that it's just something.
Yeah.
They don't even. I think there have been a little bit of his knee issues, but they're almost not related. It's just like kind of like
that's
the
the thing.
Embiid
It's just
thing.
been odd, and like the degenerative knee thing is there now. But like, it's an ankle, it's a knee, it's a contusion, it's a concussion. It's I'm making those things up, but you know what I mean. Like it's unrelated. I've said that before. You're 100% right. He feels like the type of guy who just runs into bad luck, and. If he played 4 straight years or 4 out of 5 years, because you can never bank on health all the time. Let's say he had 4 out of 6 healthy years. Him being at 2 would make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
The health factor is just, it's never there.
Yeah. And I think when you consider where this team is at and what's needed to win at this point, I totally get it. Were there any people you were expecting that I didn't include? Mike Trout was one in the comments.
Yeah, Trout just never felt realistic.
Yeah.
It was just like the hometown kid and the Angels stink and all of that. I'm trying to think off the top of my head who probably Adolis Garcia last year may have made the list, but it's a moot point now.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think who.
I thought you referenced early on that there was someone you thought I was going to mention.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think if who it was that it could have been, because now that I see this list and I'm like, maybe not.
Yeah.
Yamamoto's clear-cut number 1 for me. I'm trying to think about free agency over the last couple of years, because like they've signed a bunch of guys. They've signed Trey Turner, Bryce Harper.
Devers was another guy a lot of people had mentioned wanting.
I think that they were never going to be in play for Devers based on what we thought the trade was going to cost them.
Yeah, I don't remember it ever being super serious. Where I think it made a lot of sense. I mean, you could just move Bowman, replace him, and I guess.
Yeah, I guess
more offensive.
Probably the most likely outcome would have been the year that they traded for Austin Hayes. Machado is probably the big one.
Yeah.
But they ended up signing Harper, so like, where do you play in that? Machado's the big what if, right?
I can't remember if I think he was if that was ever like a super serious conversation.
Machado?
Yeah.
Oh, he was here. It was
Really?
Harper or Machado. They were getting one of them.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. It was like the Phillies are not walking away without one of these two guys.
I kind of knew that. I think I took it as like Bryce Harper was just much more expected, perhaps. I mean, I was still in high school. I don't really remember all that much. And Juan Soto was another one. I couldn't. I think with that one, that was another one that I read that was really common that I thought like, yeah, they probably wanted. I mean, everyone wanted to. I didn't think they just had.
Yeah, it
didn't seem realistic. Kind of.
If you remember, there was the electrician who was yelling outside of Machado, like, "Do the right thing, Manny. Sign in Philly."
Oh, I didn't know.
It became kind of a meme, but like, if the Phillies would have walked away that free agency with neither of them, disaster.
Yeah.
They were signing one of those two guys.
We
anyway.
need that union worker for our next negotiation.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's like, you just got to have him like, just hire him seasonally, just to stand out there and yell at free agents. Anyway, that's gonna wrap up. That's gonna wrap up today's show. Big thank you to everybody who was hanging out in the chat today. Our blind rankings list is there. I'm okay with most of it. I would have moved Buxton down, but I'm okay with most of it. Big thank you to Ethan Hartley for producing and co-hosting today's show. We will be back on Wednesday at noon, assuming nothing else breaks. And I said that on Friday, and then immediately the JT Realmuto contract signed. So right this moment, we'll be back on Wednesday at noon. I think we're safe for now. Thank you to everybody for hanging out. Coming up at 2 o'clock today, it's the PHLY Eagles show, followed by, just let me get the schedule for you really quickly so I know exactly what's coming up. But the PHLY Eagles show is live at 2. The PHLY Sixers pregame show at 6:30. Flyers pregame show at 7:30. And then 10 minutes after the final whistle and final horn, the Sixers and Flyers will go live for their postgame shows. We'll be back again on Wednesday at noon right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. Thank you so much for being a part of today's show. We'll talk to you later. See you.
We all silly like the mayor.